for a guilty verdict. If nothing does not happen, then we know that we've got to not only stay in the street, but we've got to fight for justice. We've got to get more confrontational. We've got to make sure that they know that we mean business.
Now, over the last few weeks, Minneapolis returned to center stage with the trial of the police officer who was accused of killing George Floyd last May. Again, the causes of civil rights, equal justice, and the rule of law tell us that this trial, and every trial, must go forward without social pressure, political considerations, and certainly violent threats playing a role. Every single American deserves a fair trial. This is sacred. You do not balance the scales of justice by trying to tip them. And yet, this past weekend, one Democratic House member from California took it upon herself to visit the protesters in Minneapolis. She said, quote, "We're looking for a guilty verdict." Like somebody window shopping or ordering off a menu. She's looking for a guilty verdict. If that verdict is not reached, the Congresswoman said, demonstrators should not only stay in the street, we've got to get more active, get more confrontational, make sure that they know we mean business. It's harder to imagine anything more inappropriate than a member of Congress flying in from California to inform local leaders, not so subtly, that this defendant had better be found guilty or else there will be big trouble in the streets. Again, so much of our nation's quest for civil rights and equal justice has been the fight to get rid of extrajudicial violence, to get rid of rigged trials where the outcome was molded by public sentiment or angry mobs. It's beyond the pale for a sitting member of the United States Congress to look at what happened last summer and imply there should be some kind of a sequel if a legal case does not unfold as she thinks it should. Now, just a few hours after those comments, two members of the National Guard who were on site in Minneapolis keeping the peace were targeted in a drive-by shooting. Thankfully, neither was seriously injured, but let's hope it doesn't take an injury or a fatality to remind politicians that their words actually have consequences.
Today I rise because of the double standards in this chamber. Once again this weekend, we saw a member of the majority openly call for more confrontation in a Minneapolis suburb. That very night, there was a drive-by shooting that in that community where police and the National Guardsmen were targeted. If this were reversed, If this was said by a Republican, you know, Madam Speaker, that the majority in this chamber would move to strip that representative of their committees and possibly move to expel them from Congress. We've actually seen this before. If the majority cares about this institution, if the majority cares about our nation, they need to get their own house in order and tamp down on the vile rhetoric.
The gentlelady's
And I
time has
yield
expired.
back.